BBC brings you facts you did not know about Bobiwine. Uganda elections 2021. Who is Bobiwine? There has never been a peaceful handover of power in Uganda, but pop star turned politician Bobiwine is hoping to change that by unseating long-serving President Yoweri Museveni in Thursday's vote. BBC Africa correspondent Catherine Byorohanga takes a look at the challenger. A few weeks before the general election and what could be the biggest day of Bobiwine's life, he brought his presidential campaign to his family's ancestral home. The 38-year-old pop star, whose real name is Robert Kyagulanyi, made his reputation in the informal settlements of the capital, Kampala, but here in Kanoni, a sleepy rural town in central Uganda, his support is just as evident. Hundreds of young people, mostly men dressed in red, seem to emerge from the bushes and gardens and surround his motorcade. Bobiwine, also known as the ghetto president, climbed through the sunroof of his white Toyota Land Cruiser and waved at the crowds. They frantically respond. In an unlikely sartorial move for a presidential candidate, he has started wearing a bulletproof vest and protective helmet. In December, a bullet was shot through his vehicle's windscreen, narrowly missing a passenger. Bobiwine said that he thought his life was in danger. In Kanoni, as had happened countless times during the campaign, he ran into a police and military blockade. Tear gas and bullets were fired. The authorities said they were simply trying to disperse crowds and enforce COVID-19 guidelines. But Bobiwine believed this was yet another sign of intimidation. He has been consistent in saying that it will not succeed as he feels that he is at the head of a mass movement. People are not just following me. People are following an ideal that I represent, he told the BBC in 2019. I did not start it and I will not end it. I'm just one of the millions and millions of Ugandans that want better. The manifesto of his National Unity Platform (NUP) party is geared towards basic needs like improving access to healthcare, education, clean water, and justice. All of this, the NUP says, can only be done by removing President Museveni from power. Over the last 2 decades, Bobiwine's musical output has been filled with songs about these issues, and they have inspired a fervent following. He understands as 23-year-old law student Marian Karabo is vying to be a local councillor, and she is one of his supporters. Even before his political life he was someone the youth could identify with, she says. Especially through his music, you could clearly see that he understood the social issues that young people were facing, especially young people from the ghetto. When President Museveni came to power in 1986, Bobiwine was just about to turn 4 and living in Kanoni. Central Uganda had been the battleground of the Bush War that brought Mr. Museveni's rebel National Resistance Army and its political wing, the National Resistance Movement (NRM), to power. Bobiwine's grandfather, Yosefu Walakira, was part of a different rebel contingent but from time to time during the conflict hosted Mr. Museveni in his house. Walakira died during the Civil War after being injured when his home was bombed, an attack which also killed 3 family members. Bobiwine's family later moved to Kampala. His mother Margaret Nalankoma, a nurse, was the main breadwinner and bought land in the Kamwokia slum where the musician lived and built his now world-famous recording studio. Some of his primary and secondary schools were often within walking distance from Kamwokia. As a teenager he discovered a passion for the arts, but when he first attended the prestigious Makerere University he started out studying for a social sciences degree. After 1 semester he switched courses and took on music, dance and drama, earning a diploma from the university in 2003. Campaigning all my career in 2017, the reggae star turned his hand to politics as he saw it as the logical next step. You know, all through my musical career, I've been singing about the challenges that people go through, he told the BBC. So it's as if I've been campaigning all my musical career. His song Tuliambula Engule, We Shall Wear the Victor's Crown, has become one of the campaign's unofficial anthems. He won a by-election to become MP for Kyadondo East, a constituency to the north of the capital, and even though an independent he aligned himself with the opposition. In a series of by-elections he campaigned for candidates who defeated hopefuls from the NRM. There was a sound of regret in Bobiwine's voice when he reflected on his rival's career in a BBC interview in 2019. Why did such a prized revolutionary decide to become one of the world's most despised dictators, he asked. But it's also a lesson to many of us, knowing that we are saying what President Museveni was saying when he was in our times. And also to remember that it is only the idea of building strong institutions that can save us from ourselves. The comparisons between a younger Mr. Museveni, charismatic, energetic, and inspiring, with today's Bobiwine are hard to escape. The rebel commander was just 41 years old when he seized power, promising Ugandans security, a stronger economy, and a better future. Some do wonder whether his new challenger, full of idealism and populist rhetoric, might not make the same mistakes. Activist Cypriea Mali Sasarabo, 24, who says she is now in political exile in Kenya, is disillusioned with Bobiwine. In 2019, she became the face of student protests over a fee hike at Makerere University. For that, she was abducted by people she believed were plainclothes soldiers, badly beaten, and left barely conscious. He lacks an ideology. At the end of that year, she briefly joined Bobiwine's party, but left because of what she saw as a lack of ideological grounding. He was asked about his economic system when he is president, she says, referring to a July 2020 interview Bobiwine gave to a local radio station. He was asked whether he was on the left or the right of the ideological setting, and his answer was he was neither on the right or the left, and he will just use what works. It just does not make sense for me. Apart from the large crowds that gather to support him, like the one in Kanoni, it is hard to tell how truly popular he is and whether the cheers will be turned into votes. Data on registered voters and their voting patterns are very limited. Francis Kiberage, national coordinator for the Afrobarometer survey in Uganda, has been carrying out opinion polls and studies in Uganda since 2000. He says the question remains as to whether Bobiwine has done enough to transcend opposition politics and chip away at the huge vote that President Museveni and the NRM have gained in previous elections. He argues that NRM supporters see the party and the president as the guarantor of peace, and Bobiwine's NUP has not done enough to persuade them otherwise. Just as in most of the previous 5 elections under Mr. Museveni, this one has been marred by allegations of violence against the opposition, press and civil society activists. In November, at least 54 people were left dead after police and soldiers moved in to break up protests over Bobiwine's arrest. In this context, there are some who are already questioning the validity of the vote. Bobiwine, however, has encouraged people to cast their ballots and says voters should make sure there is no rigging at polling stations. He is under no illusion that unseating Mr. Museveni will be easy. While we know that we are up against a brute force, we are confident, he told the BBC in a 2020 interview. We are confident because the people of Uganda are on our side. And we are confident because history is on our side. Who is Bobiwine? Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, who is better known by his stage name Bobiwine, is a former musician who took Ugandan politics by storm after winning a parliamentary seat in Kayodondo East by a landslide in 2017. The following year, the 38-year-old announced he would challenge the country's longest-serving leader, Yoweri Museveni, in the election slated for January 2021. Over the last 2 years, Wine has grown to become Museveni's biggest challenger. Many of his young supporters have said they are drawn to the scathing and unflinching critique of Museveni heard in several of Wine's original songs. In one such song about Museveni, Wine sings, "Freedom fighters become dictators. They look upon the youth and say we're destructors." Museveni, who initially dismissed Wine as a hooligan from the ghettos, had come to power in 1986 after overthrowing 2 dictators. For a while, he was regarded as a freedom fighter and was praised for restoring stability in the country and encouraging economic growth. But he has been known to maintain a firm grip on power through repression and by silencing his opposition. In 2017, Ugandan lawmakers amended the constitution to allow Museveni to rule for life.